I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before we go on to the agenda items, I have some speakers that wish to speak tonight. I'm going to call you up, and then I'm going to call up the person who's on deck so you're ready to go as well. Our speakers are going to receive 3 minutes to communicate, and we will have a timer going. So the first speaker we have is Mr. Peter Katz, followed by Irma Macias.
Pushed into the neighborhoods, on the street corners, behind the shopping centers. I brought to the attention of the city manager the growing problem at the McFadden Walmart shopping center becoming a big party area, becoming like a civic center. That so much so that the shopping center has now hired security guards to protect the parking lot. So once again, I'm just urging us to start working on a citywide ordinance to deal with this problem and get these people the help they need and get them off the streets. So make the city look a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. Ms. Irma Macias, followed by Kathleen Rudy.
Good afternoon. My name is Irma Macias, and I'm here to talk about item 4 and item 5. Item 4 is, what's the last item already? Well, I want to speak about the homeless. I think now that the homeless are now out of the Plaza de Blacks, there is a position that needs to be removed because we need those monies for the library. I heard that they wanted to close the hours on Sundays. I don't appreciate that because I think those are the days that families go to their libraries and they need that funding to use for those resources. And also, in regards to the homeless, still there's a lot of them in the neighborhoods, and the community doesn't understand.
Thank you, Ms. Macias. Ms. Kathleen Rudy, followed by Raymond Fays.
Good evening, and first of all, my name is Captain. car that's there for more than a few minutes because it's blocking the safety alley, and I can't do a whole lot about the kids and the bicycles and the skateboards.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy. Next speaker, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Please correct me if I'm not. Ramin Faze, and followed by Jennifer Faze.
Good evening, how are y'all today? I live in Flora Park, and my
appreciate, having this open for the community so we can express our viewpoint. My husband and I live at 2371 North Riverside Drive. I'm speaking, to item 2, specifically to the house next door to us, 2369 North Riverside Drive. We have homeless people living in the house. The owner has been negligent, has not showed up in months. The house is going to ruin, it's boarded up. We have seen over and over people coming from the creek under the Broadway Bridge, through the backyard, into the house, carrying bags of who knows what, doing who knows what in the house. There's a gentleman on a bicycle that claims he has permission to be in the house. I spoke to the current owner yesterday on the phone, who told me that no one has permission to be on that property. This person has been held and released and not taken into custody. And I keep seeing people coming into the backyard. There's, like my husband said, there's a gentleman with a pit bull who comes through the yard all the time. There's several people on bicycles using the driveway as a corridor between Riverside Drive and the creek. And we've made numerous calls. Friday night, we could see flashlights of people coming down from Broadway under the bridge. We did notice that there was some police activity on the other side of the bank. We were in our backyard yelling, "You're on the wrong bank. They're under the bridge on this side." And, we saw flashlights for less than a minute, and then they were gone. And I understand that people living there under the bridge are given citations, but they're not paying attention to the citations. And we have graffiti in the backyard, and we have to worry about who's back there all the time. And it's very stressful to live next to an abandoned, boarded up house. And I'd like for the owner to be called and to be responsible. He's told me that the permits are cleared. He's told me that he has permission to build a cinder block wall back there to secure the property, but nothing is being done. And yesterday, he promised me to show up, and he did not show up. So to say I'm beyond frustrated is an understatement. With the amount we're paying for our mortgage and the amount of property tax we're paying in the city, we need something to get done, because this is going to be the start of the ruin of our neighborhood, and we don't want to see that, because we care about our community very much. We had a home and garden tour recently. We had 2,000 to 3,000 people coming through our neighborhood to see homes and gardens. The money goes to scholarships for kids in Santa Ana, and it's really embarrassing to have a boarded up house in the middle of a home tour. That's raising money for charity for this city. So I really appreciate if we can get moving on this and get something done before it becomes a bigger problem in the bigger community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Faze. Janelle McLaughlin, Ms. Janelle McLaughlin, followed by Mr. Ed Marashi.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ed Murashi,
Hi, everybody.
and followed by Mr. Chris Schmidt.
Hi, everybody. Ed Marashi, President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chris Schmidt, followed by Eric Mole.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to give
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Last speaker is Eric Mole.
Hello. This is my first time at one of these meetings, but I'm actually across the street from you guys, and the fire last water, but I would rather that than wake up to a fire in my backyard. That is one of the scariest things. And that was the eve of my wedding celebration in my backyard, which was held on Saturday night. So please help us with Santiago Creek. It's a major problem along the Fisher Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moe. And that concludes our public comment. I will then go to item number 1, is an update on arson fire investigation task force.
Okay, that's better. Council members, recently we have had an increased number of fires along the Santiago Creek. We had the arson investigators from OCFA examine some of those fires, as well as other fires we have found generally started by some of our transient individuals. In reviewing information from the Arson Investigators Task Force that works all throughout the entire county, we found that our municipal code in regards to fires is woefully inadequate. As such, we have begun working directly with the city attorney's office based on information that the Arson Investigator Task Force says they need to do prosecutions and to perform better investigations. So we are actively involved in creating an amendment or alteration to our current laws as it pertains to fires. But some of the most concerning things are, it's not necessarily against the law to light a fire next to a building, but it should be. So as we examine and look at what some other cities that have some fantastic ordinances that will give the fire department, the police department, both better teeth to try to address some of these issues, our hope is that we will be bringing it back towards probably not to public safety, but probably directly to council within about a month. We feel that if we had to wait to come back to public safety, it would be too long, and we'd like to get ahead of most specifically fire season.
Okay. Are there any questions for any of the council members?
I have a question.
Councilmember
Mr.
Villegas.
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question. So regarding the fencing, I'm a little unclear on the private property, public property area back there. Is there anything we can do about that?
Along the creek bed.
Yes, sir.
So specifically along the creek bed, I understand that there has been long-standing disagreements between the city and property owners over what is the city's, what is the Corps of Engineers, and what is actually the property owners. I don't know whether or not that has been agreed upon. What I can tell you is when we talk about fencing the area down along the creek bed, one of the issues that comes into play is some of the property owners would actually like to increase the size of their fencing and take it farther into the creek bed so they can properly identify their property lines. However, it's also my understanding that the Army Corps of Engineers won't allow that to happen. Is that true?
That's never been the request, Ken. That never has been the request. The request has been to fence off the tunnel.
No.
Private property.
I know that. I'll get to that in a minute. But the question is, right, okay, but the question for the council member was.
I'm gonna let's keep
go
it.
ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay,
So-
that's okay.
So they can't build their fences farther down into the creek because the Army Corps of Engineers won't allow them to do that. The one or two locations that the community is interested in fencing is when you go over the top of the overpass, the Broadway overpass. You can come down underneath the bridge, and some people call it the bridge to nowhere. It's a pedestrian or bicycle path that goes underneath in a westbound direction and then ends just abruptly at the end of where the bridge overhang ends. It just stops. It is my understanding that that does actually end up into the back of an individual's private property. I know that the city has looked at fencing it on several different occasions. There have been discussions to have it permanently fenced, and I don't know what the current status of that is. However, if we are going to if we do consider fencing the west side termination of the bridge or walkway to nowhere, we actually have to fence the east side of that walkway as well, so that people don't get trapped underneath this long, extended, dark bridge area.
Now, I'm a little familiar, I think you went there during
Yes.
during that early morning hours count of the homeless. And if you fence it off, my concern would be that if you might have people climb fences, and then you might get someone stuck back there. You're gonna have a body, and it's gonna be sitting there for a while, and no one's gonna know about it. So I understand we need to have access for emergencies, but at the same time, we need to protect our, the residents. Maybe we can continue to look at it a little bit and see if we can come up with something else.
There were conceptual fencing ideas that I believe Park and Rec looked at several years ago.
If we don't do anything, the problem's going to continue or get worse. So, we might want to look into it a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other council members? Questions? No. Thank you very much for those individuals who spoke. I just wanted to, number one, Officer Kaminsky, I've said this before, I have a lot of respect for him, and I do believe he is a valuable human commodity here in our city. I do believe that there have been issues in the past, and you've been willing to work and be patient, but there is a tipping point, and I think the tipping point is here. And I do believe that quality of life is important for us. So I would like to see our team get together to try to create some type of solvency, even if it's a solvency where there's periodic checks and getting people out and just assuring. Because once that happens several times, people start to realize, don't go there. They're gonna tell you to leave. But it takes a while to build that culture and that reputation up. So whatever the case may be, if we could do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to go to item number 2, is an update on police officer recruiting.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to provide this update once again. Police officer hiring continues to be a top priority of the police department. Just a review on the number of sworn positions. Again, in the general fund, we have 369 sworn positions, 11 in special revenue funds, 3 in grants, for a total sworn count of 383 sworn positions. Through April 30th, we have 322 of those filled, and we're currently trying to fill 61 vacancies. Again, through April, we've hired 10 police officers. 6 of those are recruits, and 4 laterals from other departments. As far as backgrounds, we have 36 police officer candidates in various stages of the background process. We have, of those 36, we have 3 that are tentatively scheduled for Commander and Chief oral interviews in May. And we're looking at 7, 4 who've already passed all the stages, and these 3 here. We're looking to hire 7 on June 25th. So those are looking very promising, so we can add those to the 10 I just mentioned on the previous slide. In terms of academy and our field training program, we currently have 7 recruits in the academy, 3 scheduled to graduate, or actually that did graduate on the 19th. 3 recruits graduating in class 231 in June, and we have 1 in Golden West Academy 157 scheduled to graduate in June as well. And we have a big group in the field training program, a group of 17, for a total of 24 at various stages of the academy and field training program. So shortly, those two groups will be able to come out of training and start contributing in patrol. Last time I presented on this topic in January, I shared an extensive list of calendar year 2017 events that the recruitment team had attended. So far this year, the recruitment team has attended 10 recruitment events and are scheduled to attend 4 additional. Here's a look at events that they've already attended. You'll notice that there's been a concerted effort to have more of a presence at Santa Ana College, so you'll see that through these list of events here. In February, the recruitment team attended the Santa Ana College Criminal Justice Program event. In March, a Coastline Community College event. 2 additional events in March at Santa Ana College. And in April, several events here. You'll see a Golden West College event, a downtown Santa Ana Art Walk event. Cal State Fullerton had a student union internship and career fair that was attended. At East LA College, there was a recruitment event that we attended there. These military recruitment events, we seem to have a lot of interest in our department at these events, so we attend those whenever we can. We had a summer youth job fair as well in Anaheim. Downtown Santa Ana Art Walk event in May. They'll be attending, of course, the Santa Ana PD open house. And again, you'll see a couple of events on the calendar here, military recruitment events, one at Camp Pendleton and one at an additional event down in San Diego. And that's what's on the calendar now, but the recruitment team's constantly adding to this list, so I'm sure there'll be several more in the summer and throughout the fall and winter of this year. Also, what we're working on with our training commander, Sorensen, is working on a system to track the effectiveness of each of these types of events. We know just through the interest that we have at the different types of events that the military is popular, but on some of these others, we want to know, okay, of the people we talk to, of the people that we spend time with at these events, how many are actually filling out applications, how many are actually getting through the process, how many are we actually hiring, because we want to be able to use our limited resources on events that are effective. And I'll take any questions.
Do you have any questions? Any council member? Council member Benavides?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few questions I do have. I'm trying to get handle on the numbers. So year to date in 2018, 10 hires, or actually even going back before that. So we've got 322 positions filled. The 24, then going to slide 5, the 24 that are at various stages of the Academy and FTO program, are those considered hires? Are those considered part of the 322?
They are
total.
Yes.
So
the recruits in the academy, they're not yet sworn officers, but they're filling a police officer slot. And once they graduate, they'll be sworn in by the chief, and they'll be sworn police officers. From there, they will go to the field training program, which they're sworn officers, but they're not contributing on their own. They're contributing with a field training officer, but they're not yet out on their own.
Okay. So of the 322, in essence, that's not necessarily officers out on patrol.
Correct.
And are definitely or not on their own. So we still, have a number of them that are still not quite there. So I'm just trying to again get a better sense of numbers. The 61 vacancies that we show is ultimately we're going through and doing recruitment, doing everything we can. Those are funded positions that are, if we found the individuals, that qualified individuals, we would be able to hire and bring them on. Is that?
We've been taking the position, we're hiring as fast as we can. The budget office, no one has told us to slow down on hiring. So whether and again, this is the 17-18 numbers, right. So I'm confident that we'll be able to continue hiring as fast as we can through June.
Okay, that addressed some of my question. Actually, last question I do have, the special revenue funds,
Yes.
11. Can you tell us a little bit more about?
Yes,
that
so
is?
the special revenue funds would be the Civic Center. We have 7 officers budgeted in the Civic Center and 4 in the downtown.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Navides. Councilmember Villegas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, a few questions. How many officers have we lost this year due to retirements?
Due to retirements, I don't have the exact number, but I'm going to say in the range of 5 or 6.
And we lose an average about 28, 30 a year.
Yeah, about 25 to 30. Yeah, 25 to 30. Yeah,
For the last 3 years, those were the numbers.
correct.
Now, how many are on IOD right now?
We have 4 on long-term IOD, 9 on light duty.
So they're not on patrol
Correct.
and are patrol ready. Okay, and so the 61, last time, okay, at the budget meeting that we had on Tuesday, there was 55 vacancies that were unfunded, right, or funded, that we haven't filled, correct? Is that, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, Councilman.
So the 55 vacancies that we had that were presented at the budget, those were funded.
Unfunded, right. There was 55 unfunded.
Unfunded or funded?
I think they were unfunded.
Because
Correct.
Robert said it was different. It was funded and they were added, and just trying to clarify this here, because now I see number 61, and the number that we had was 55.
Yes,
Earlier.
the 55 number of unfunded positions. That's our attrition number was 8.9 million, and that equates to about 55 police officer positions. So that's where that 55 number came in.
Okay. And how many officers do we have on our department under 5 years experience?
We're hiring about average 35 a year. Yeah, about 125, 140. That's an estimate.
140. We have a young department.
We did-
That's what I'm
yeah,
trying to
yes, we
get
do.
at, because we have a lot of people retiring, and people get injured, and then they leave also. And, I just want to make a note of that, because we need to keep people here. And I know due to the 3 at 50, a lot of people leave the retirement system, but that has changed. So all these folks that are in now, they're going to be staying a little bit longer if they're going to choose to retire out from our agency. So it's very important for us to stay competitive against all the other departments in Orange County, that when it comes down to benefits and pay, and that's why we keep pushing to try to stay competitive, our agency or our city, against all the other cities. And I know the public seems to always criticize that a lot of money goes to public safety, but this is the reason. And according to the city employees here, they're well compensated, and it's kind of hard to justify a raise when you're getting paid top dollar in your category, what your job title is. So I need the public to understand that. So we are, all agencies, all cities are having this issue of keeping their officers at their city, because there's competition out there, and that's why this is so vital. We are operating at, we're supposed to be at 1.8 officers, but we're operating at 0.9, which is half.
Correct.
So that's why when you call the police, it takes a long time if it's a non-emergency. And I'll be honest, because it's happened to me a few times already, and it's happened in my family, and we deserve better than that. So when I hear the issues right here, hey, I need the officers to show up, there's some individuals behind my home, all that good stuff, need an officer to respond right away. I mean, I wouldn't want to live like that, where I have these issues where, I have to worry about my home. I think we all care about our families, and, as we should, and we deserve better than that, especially in this city. And I believe that we're going to make it. We're going to make it. As far as I'm here, we're going to continue to push, because public safety is something that the city needs to provide for all of our residents and all of our business owners here. And that's why I was pushing these numbers here, to find out where we're at exactly. We do have a young department, and I would like to see can we get those numbers, what the how many people are here under 5 years, and under 15 years or so, and how many people are close to retirement, so we kind of project. I'm sure someone has numbers. on
Yes,
that.
we can
Yeah.
get those numbers.
Right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Benavides, you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been taking significant concerted steps towards hiring, and just even looking at the number of vacancies that we have and the number of funded positions. Is there anything that we can do to, specifically from a policy standpoint, from a city and administration standpoint, to help with these filling of these positions? It seems like, again, there have been a number of different, from even having chief has directed now a full-time, I think it's a corporal or sergeant towards recruiting. We've been very proactive. We actually brought in a consultant to be able to help provide some tools and insight, a dedicated website. We have folks going out. Is it in general just a challenge across the board with the challenges to bring people on? Is it something that all agencies are experiencing it to the same degree? Is there something that, a miss that we, or again, more so on our side, on the policy side, that would be able to help to ensure that we do get folks in the door?
Thank you for asking the question, Councilmember. This is an industry-wide issue. It really is. It's extremely competitive. And so for that reason, we need to be very strategic and really calculated on how we recruit. There are agencies up and down the state of California that today are offering $25,000 as an incentive to hire on as a lateral officer. So, I mean, where do they get those lateral officers? From other police departments. So we're all competing for the same limited resources. What I have put in motion with the staff, they're the ones that do the good work, is to really reach out to areas that we historically have not. If you'll notice, some of the locations where they've been to most recently are not the traditional exclusive military installations. College, which we hadn't been to in quite some time. So I'd like to see more local talent and from various venues as well. I think we've talked a little bit about this is an incentive for current employees. So if you're a current sitting officer in the police department and you know someone, whether they're a recruit or a lateral, provide some incentive for that employee to refer or recommend someone to come onto the police department. I would hope that we're going to recruit good people. They're going to be working side by side with them. Their life may depend on that partner that they bring in. So I would rather focus there than if we. My opinion is the up really high numbers of $25,000. You may get a situation where people are just jumping from one agency to another. We want people that are vested, that know the city. Another factor that we implemented recently was an actual chief's interview. That was not in place before. And so after they go through this process, I sit down with each and every one, and I want to know what they know about our city, and why do they want to come work here. They may have been asked that along the way, but I do have final decision in terms of whether they continue in the process. And it's an opportunity for me to really kind of get a sense of where the person is coming from and what their intentions are. It's a short interview, but I think you can tell a lot and glean a lot from that. And I have declined in hiring a couple of folks because my perspective was they did not have a sense of why they wanted to come here and serve here in our city, with the challenges and the opportunities and the diverse, landscape that we have here. So that's just one area. This issue is, as you said, it's ongoing. It's critical to us. I believe it's the number one issue facing our police department. We can adjust to all the operational needs, but if we don't have the manpower, we're limited. So just today, I can speak about this without getting into the details. We had a promotional test, one component of it, and for the rank of deputy chief. So this is second in command of the organization. And essentially, the question posed there is, this is our number one issue, and provide me a plan on how you intend to address it. So that was a good, applicable, real, live issue for us, for our city and for our police department.
Thank you, Chief, for addressing the question. And this is the first I learned about the Chief's interview. I noticed that on here in the presentation, and I was wondering if that was either missed or if there was maybe a deputy chief. But the fact that you're actually taking that level of interest in that step, we have positions to fill. But what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, is that you don't just want positions filled. You want the right people,
Absolutely.
Quality people, to be serving our city and our residents. And you've got somewhat of you've got a tension there. You have calls that are coming in and officers out there that want and need more backup and support and people out there, and at the same time, we again just that level of quality to ensure that you have a solid department, and appreciate the fact that you're not even that you're willing to even turn people away if they're not the right person, even though that means that you're not hitting the numbers that we want to hit. So definitely that sends a strong message. I appreciate that, and again, any way that we can be of assistance and support at the policy level, we want to be support you and the city manager.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Chair. Yes, I just wanted to add that to reinforce what the chief's message was, that we're recruiting in places where we haven't not recruited. I recall when my brothers were in college, this was a long time ago, they were being recruited by San Jose Police Department back in, would have been the 90s, early 90s. And San Jose PD was out in the San Fernando Valley going to Valley College, Valley Mission College. They're going basically statewide to recruit. They're going in places they've never gone before. And so I think that's part of it, but I wanted to underscore that this is a nationwide, if not statewide, for sure statewide, but if not nationwide, challenge. It was recently in Governing Magazine. They were detailing the challenges in Utah and Idaho, Arizona, California. Same thing, it's a generational thing partly. It's just a group of people who are not inclined to go into this work. In terms of being competitive, I think that we're being competitive right now. We have, of the 10 hires that we hired to date, 6 were police recruits, 4 were lateral transfers. So that's 40% are coming in from another agency to come work for us. So I'm sure the compensation is okay, but I think also the reputation. People will just take it from me. The people I know, in public service, money is important, but it's not the thing that drives people. People want to be able to make a difference. That's why we go into public service. And so I think the reputation of our police department is also attractive. I think it's a brand that we need to continue to maximize in our recruitment efforts.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I received a text message, and then I called this former student of mine, and he has gone through phase 2 at 3 cities, Santa Ana, Fullerton, and Whittier. And Whittier, he's on the background check. And so he called me and he says, they call me T. He says, T, I think I'm going to make it through. And he says, I put in all the applications at the same time. He says, I don't know why one took a little longer than the other. I said, well, we're huge. I said, we're a large organization. He says, yeah, that's what I figured, because Whittier's much smaller. So I told him to hang tight. I said, hang tight, go through the process. I said, because we have a very strong department. So that's another challenge that we have, is sometimes as you have these smaller organizations that can get through the system, or they don't have as many people applying in their departments. But I do want to say this. I do want to bring this back up as our city manager and our chief. I like to call it. I like to try to be as forthright on data that we received. And Officer Kaminsky, a while back, I don't know if it was a year ago or a few months back, you presented a program or a presentation that showed which type of work hours had more officers out on the street at one time. And I think there were different areas of opinion until the study came out. And the study showed that a mix of the 3 and the 4, the 3-day and 4-day, brought in more officers on the street. As we head into negotiations with our Police Officers Association, I agree with Councilmember Villegas that what is attractive is that there is a strong compensation, but also that there is a move to continue that trend moving forward. And we've talked about structural deficits and so forth. And I went out, and I know it's not popular to go out and talk about a sales tax, a 1-cent sales tax increase to increase our public safety. Public safety in the city of Santa Ana. I was here in the 90s when businesses were leaving, and it was very difficult to keep that revenue stream coming in because of that. Things got taken care of. There were different programs that were put out on the streets that kind of settled everything down, and it increased the quality of life for everyone. My comment tonight would be this: let's look at that two-prong approach. Let's look at that. Where can we fund? At the same time, how to expand the amount of officers that we have. So there should be a little bit of a give and take here, where we say to our department, look, we want to support you with a pay increase. In the meantime, the community also needs support to create this daily work week, a 3-4 shift is what I think we came up, so that we don't have the calls. And in return, our council is trying to put something out to the voters that I think our voters would support, because our voters have always been supportive of increasing the amount of officers we have on our staff and to assuring that we attract the best from other areas as well. So that would be my comment tonight. And we're going to go, and I'm going to ask Officer Kaminsky and also our Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Bogosian, if we can try to keep our presentations to 5 minutes, because I know that last one's going to take us a little while. So I'm going to call item number 3, Deputy Chief Kaminsky.
So, just real quick, item number 3 is in fact the historical piece on the patrol work schedule, the 312-412. Go ahead, Ken.
And so, to keep it brief, it looks very similar to what we talked about a year ago. What I think is interesting is to put the patrol schedules and the manpower into context. In comparison to 3/1/2017, we compared 5/1/2018. Last year in March, we had 114 officers in patrol. This year we have 122, which means that we should be doing much, much better. However, as I get an opportunity to go over the field operations schedule and deployments, this is what the realities are. I have 122 officers assigned to field operations. Currently, I have 105 that are fieldable. That means I have 4 off on some other type of leave. I have long-term injured individuals that take me down to 4, and then I have light duty status, which is generally workplace injuries, which is -9. So from the 122, we drop off 17, and that's how we end up with 105. So even after all of the hiring and all of the recruiting and all of the fantastic work that we've done, and the chief holds the 105 line very, very tightly. We cannot go below 105 in patrol, no matter what happens. That 105, after all of our work and all of our effort, we are +2 in our field responses in patrol after 14 months. That's the complexities that the chief and the recruiting staff are faced with, and what those of us in field operations are forced to deal with every day. Councilmember, as you discussed before, there are truly 2 shifts that the police department is interested in evaluating and moving forward with. There is our current schedule that we've had for many, many years. It is a 312 and a half with a payback day. And then we have what we refer to as the old schedule, the old A-B side schedule. That's the 312-412. When we compare the 312-412 to the 312 and a half and payback day, we find that the 312, 412 actually gives us one more day of work per month per officer. And after all is said and done, actually equates to an increase of somewhere around 8 officers in patrol just by simply changing the schedule. This, of course, is a meet and confer issue and something that would have to be discussed and brought up in negotiations with the Peace Officers Association. I can answer any questions, but this is very similar to what you were interested in talking about before.
Are there any questions?
Just a question.
Councilmember Benavides.
Deputy Chief, you when you say the 312, 412 would potentially provide for 8 additional officers, is that in any given shift or per day? Or how does that?
So this is what the numbers look like. When we talk about the 312, 412, we're talking about working 7 days in 7 days every 2 weeks. When we talk about the 312 and a half, 7 days, which is 14 days in a month. Okay. When we talk about the 312 and a half schedule with the one payback day, instead of working 14 days a month, the officers are only working 13 days a month. When you take the total amount of shifts for all the officers in patrol, break it down by the number of days that they work, it actually equates to 8 additional officers in manpower just by having them work one more day a month.
I see. So I see what you mean. So overall, do we know or have an idea what that would mean as far as the impact on patrol or officers out?
Instead of having 105 in patrol, I have 113.
Okay.
That would mean that, all of the original concerns that we talk about would be slightly alleviated. We still need to get to our prime number that we consistently seek. However, when we talk about more resources, we talk about officers that respond to calls faster, that we have more time to do community-oriented policing. It's the ripple effect that moves forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Yegas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Valentin, what's your opinion on that, on this schedule?
So, just using a baseline of 100 assigned to patrol frontline operations. We hold the line at 105. The equivalent is you get the additional, it's like 7.8 officers. So that's to be exact. So if you're that 0.8, you're in bad shape. But in any event, so you end up with, let's call it 7 additional, 112. Obviously, the calls for service, our response time is lower. The other thing that, and this will bleed into our next, our last item there on number 5. So police officers are hired to, conduct proactive law enforcement duties. Their principal job is not to address, cleanups, citywide, consistently, daily, their entire shifts. It's not what the principal job of a police officer is. But because of limited resources, across the city, and we do have a team effort, some are assigned. But what you're finding is more and more and more, and increasingly, they spent an inordinate amount of time addressing those issues. So with additional officers, clearly 2 things happen. The response times go down. We get to locations a lot quicker, and then we're able to concentrate on other matters, proactive policing. That's a win-win. It makes sense, particularly when we're looking at the current budget situation in terms of trying to shore that up. But this schedule, the 312, 412, has been in existence for 18 years. And so with that, as I'm sorry.
We've been on the current schedule for 18 years.
Correct.
The 312, 412, we had 18 years before, or we had before that.
Correct.
Yes.
I got you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's been in place for many, many years. And so, as Deputy Chief said, it is a meet and confer item. But in order to leverage and further staff, I would support it, to answer your specific question.
Thank you, Chief. So, patrol is the backbone of the department. That's what everyone sees. You know, you have your units out there and you people in uniform working, and we want. So, if we were to do this new schedule, patrol is what you're saying would benefit. The reaction, the response time would be a little bit sooner. But would that free up officers to? Because you know, what about our vice unit? Would that free up the officers to work?
So,
where are we with that right now?
It would free up officers to be redirected and reprioritize other areas that we simply can't do, right? Whether it's vice or a proactive citywide enforcement team, which I think is still very much needed in this city. You know, our traffic enforcement. You know, the two areas outside of frontline policing response, traffic and gangs are a high priority based on conversations from staff, from residents. Those are two areas that we need to continue to address. And so if you have additional manpower, that's where those areas would go. And it can be flexible, obviously, based on what is occurring in the community.
Do we have a vice unit currently?
Very limited. Yes, we do, but very limited.
Do we have a marijuana unit?
Very limited.
Very
yes.
limited.
Yep.
And our gang unit got beefed up a little bit because we needed that.
So yes.
7 days a week.
So in response to hearing what was occurring in the community and talking to all of you as well, that was a top priority. And so I made some adjustments to staffing, and we have 7-day-a-week coverage for gang suppression. And we put that in place mid last year, and the results were an increase of 27% of guns seized off the streets. That directly correlates to actually preventing crime.
Now the 312, 412, that's been used before 18. Well, for the last 18 years, we've been using the 3 at 12.
So we had the 312, 412, and then
before that, why did we switch?
Negotiated benefit that we went from a 312, 412 to this
312 and a half.
312 and a half.
12 and a half tip.
So 13 days a month plus the one payback. That's where we're currently at.
8-hour payback? Or,
right.
Yeah.
So we were initially on the 312, 412, working 14 days a month. You also get the benefit, and this is, you talk to supervisors in the industry across the board, and even officers, I believe, if they're honest with you, what you get is you get continuity in supervision. So that team of officers is going to respond to the same supervisors every day of their work week, as opposed to what we have right now, and that is an overlap. So I see Councilman Tinajero as my sergeant tonight. For the next 2 nights, I just got to survive him, and then I may see you the third night, and so on. So there's continuity in leadership and supervision and in direction.
Very good. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much, Councilmember Villegas.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question of our Deputy Chief. Deputy Chief Gominski, so we talked about 7 or 8 officers, more each day. So I want to get a sense for what is that over the base? What would be the base? What is it now?
Over the base of, right now in field operations, we have 105. So that would be 113.
So
Is that
113.
the answer to the question, sir?
Yes, I'm trying to get a sense for a percentage. So I'm going to go ahead and put, 7.
7.8.
7.8 divided by 105. So we're looking at about a 7.4% increase. That's significant with not adding a body, just by being efficient. So at 7.5%, or 7.4 to be exact, more efficient. Same amount of money, same staff. That gives you that extra, that margin, the 7.4% that can be redirected elsewhere.
And I would add that as we do fill more of those vacancies, then that would mean more bodies, if you will, too, because now that same schedule is being applied to the more people that are on. So be able to just fill more of that gap.
Yes, if that's the schedule, that would certainly apply across the board.
I'm going to go on to item number 4. And Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Tamara Bogosian, you're up.
Thank you, Chair, council members. What we've done here today for you is we're giving you an update on the loud and raucous noise ordinance and a discussion about suggested revisions as it pertains to enforcement of SAMC 10-153. Without going into detail about some of these slides that were covered at the last Public Safety Committee meeting by Deputy Chief Gaminsky, I'm going to move forward with, as we know, one of the issues that he highlighted was the difficulty of enforcement as it relates to who's in charge, who's the property owner, who's leasing the property, and so on and so forth. So we looked at various city ordinances, city statutes all across California, and we found a couple of ones that we thought might be applicable here and might be of assistance to law enforcement as they receive these calls for loud parties. So what we've done here in red, and I realize that the font is a little small, but is to specifically define the word person. So as you know, 10-53 prohibits any person from causing, allowing, or permitting loud or raucous noise. So what we've done is we've defined person as either the owner of record of the property, the person in charge or purportedly in charge of the premises where the event takes place, the person authorizing the use of the premises, the person who organized the event, or the person who the responding officer believes is causing, performing, permitting to exist or otherwise maintaining the event. So this essentially gives the officer wide latitude in determining whether or not the individuals present at the party, at the event, could potentially be responsible for the call. We've also added additional recommended, again, these are just recommended and suggestions, and we're willing to have a discussion further on this as to how many times after a response do officers issue a citation and what the fines are. Some of the cities we looked at had this type of a fine schedule for the first subsequent response. So obviously not the very first response, but the first subsequent. So technically it's the second. It would be 100, and then it would be 250, and then it would be 500. Some of the other statutes, other city ordinances that I looked at, instead of listing forth the fines, they instead said by resolution as adopted by council. That allows, obviously, changes in the fee schedule without having to revise the ordinance. As well, there is an additional suggestion that I did not include here for this committee's consideration, and that is the fees that would be imposed are in addition to any criminal penalties, because as you all know, the municipal code makes any violation of our code potentially a misdemeanor unless it specifically states that it's an infraction. So we've also provided some suggestions as to what should be on the notice, the name of the person, the date, the section of the code, and so on and so forth. So those are the suggested revisions. We're open to any discussion and questions on these items.
Any questions by council members? Councilmember
Thank you,
Villegas.
Mr. Chair. Real quick, so this is an administrative fine, and then penal code would make it a misdemeanor.
Our municipal code
Yeah.
makes any violation of our
Misdemeanor.
municipal code a misdemeanor unless it specifically states it's an infraction. Yes.
Okay, and do you see any problems from your office on this? Any challenges? Because it's kind of, section, what's that, D?
Yes.
And then 1 through 5 is a little broad.
It's pretty
Yeah.
broad, but I've looked at other city codes that address how person is defined, and I don't necessarily see any problems with the way that we've articulated these definitions of a person, because there's one other issue that I would like to address, and that is if the responsible person is a minor. We would probably recommend adding that their parent or guardian would then be the responsible party. So I don't necessarily see any issues with it. We could further vet the issue as council gives us direction.
Adding the parents on that.
The parents, yes, if it's a minor.
If you deal with a minor, it's a different ballgame. Let's see, and the other cities are using the $100 subsequent response.
Yes, I've seen that. I've also seen, as I mentioned, instead of setting forth the fines in that manner, by resolution adopted by council. So we could go that route as well. And we would want to bring planning and building into this discussion as we receive direction from this committee.
It seems a little low.
Okay.
Most people say, well,
fines?
$100, I'll pay it, we're gonna keep the party going.
Yeah, but
I mean, I
But
could go through $100 real quick.
no, but here's the thing. I mean, I
And we
agree.
don't want them to,
Right.
yeah.
We have 93% of our residents or our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. 50% of our residents don't own a car. So they live, we just had people come up and talk about how people live in multi-housing. That's because they can't afford their own house. So $100 to me is like, $10 to somebody else. But $100 to somebody else is significant, and $250 is a huge blow. So it really depends on where and in the city that's happening. So I don't know if, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying there's a variety of different things to take account of.
Well, we could start off there, and if it doesn't work out.
And if it doesn't work, then up it.
I'm
And I would
open
be
to that.
supportive of that.
I'm open to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Benavides?
Question with regard to on Section E, that when it comes to the fines, there is reference to the word shall. So is there any discretion to the officers, or is it a situation where the officer comes out, I guess, and then you did actually answer part of the question with regard to the subsequent. So it's second call out, then
Yes.
it's the fine would then be imposed at that point based on what's being proposed.
I think the word shall, as it's used there, is that we shall have the authority, but I believe that we would still leave discretion to the officers as to whether or not it meets that threshold of a loud and raucous party as defined in Section A. Is that
Yes.
correct, Deputy Chief?
Yes.
Okay. And then is there what do we need to have a time period, or is it subsequent call, basically subsequent visit on a same call?
That is an excellent question, and we can absolutely include in the definition of subsequent response, which is something else that I would recommend, that it would be on the same, regarding the same event.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've had a couple discussions about what that would look like. However, when we talk about subsequent events, we also have to take into consideration some of the long-term problem locations that we have.
Yeah.
And this ordinance may put us in a position to enforce things like that apartment manager that rents out the center courtyard for parties every single weekend. So we are in the process of looking at what other cities consider to be subsequent, but I would be very hesitant to say that that single call, that single party. More importantly than that, if we went out and a party shut down and then we left and it came back and started again, is it the same party? Is it the same party by the same people, which puts me back into the same position I am now in trying to find the same person who I talked to the first time to say the party had to end. That's why we're changing what person looks like, and I'd like to really examine what subsequent will mean for this ordinance.
Those are all good questions, and the way I'm envisioning it, and maybe it's two different things. I'm thinking more generally speaking, and you're the ones who are responding to the calls, but from what I see and observe as a resident in my community, it's a single family home that's has a baptism, has a birthday party, has something of that sort, and I could see that the ordinance addressing that. I think if there are these situations where it is somebody who's actually making money out of renting either the facility or apartment, then I don't know if and maybe question to city attorney, and I don't know that it's necessarily a question for tonight, but is that something that's addressed here, or is that something that's addressed in another either by way of another ordinance, or do we further define that within this existing ordinance to make a distinction but because I do see them as two, different things.
Yes, my recommendation would be to include the definition, just as we've included the definition of loud and raucous. We would include the definition of subsequent response. And just as an example, one of the cities defines second or subsequent call as it occurs after an initial response has been made to advise the person apparently in charge that the gathering is disorderly. So it appears from this definition, this city is saying on that same day. But if we want to expand the definition of subsequent response, we can do so if that's what council desires.
I think if we're to go there, I think we do want to make sure that it's seen, that's clearly defined, that the intent, Deputy Chief just indicated, is what we're tackling, what we're addressing. Because if my neighbor has a birthday party this weekend, and next weekend it's child's baptism or something, and it's two different events, I think it would be fair to be able to treat them as two different events.
Separate.
Family separately, right. With regard to the fines, I do think that they're reasonable. Again, the way I'm seeing it is it's single family, a family having a birthday party or having some type of party. I expressed before when this came before us, I'm not personally of the mindset that this is, something that is that we have to be very, strict and heavy-handed, although I understand that it is a concern for many others. It might not be for me personally, but if that is something that is coming up as a lot of calls for service and we do need to address it, I think we just approaching it in a reasonable fashion. I think what's being proposed here tonight, given those additional definitions, I think might be something reasonable for us to consider.
Anyone else? Okay, then we're going to go up to item number 5, the homeless service update.
This one? All right. Good evening, committee members. Good evening, council members. Good evening, chief. And good evening, public members. I'm asking that I do get an ample amount of time to address the update on homelessness, to respect the fact that we've had so many members of our community come and talk about the concerns that you are seeing. And I want to start my presentation. First, I should introduce myself. My name is Hafsa Keika, and I'm the Homeless Services Manager with the city. And I've been here for 3 months, and I've arrived from Los Angeles County, which also has a dire homeless problem. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to our neighbors here today who came, and you're providing your time and your narratives, and your safety and security is a definite #1 priority. What I'm going to talk about today in the presentation provides context to the efforts that the city has engaged. Immediate responses are very important, especially when it's a fire, especially when there is a threat to safety. The back end of that is the work that needs to be done to allow for the capacity for that to happen. So what's not mentioned in the PowerPoint, but what I'd like to start off with is what was referenced earlier. I think, Peter, you had mentioned it, is that the city has taken a very strong position of suing all other cities and the county. This was a unanimous decision by our council, and the impetus behind this is to say enough is enough. Right? That this city has taken its burden, and that we need other cities and the county to step up to take on the responsibility to address homelessness. What's directly correlated to what I just said is some of the stats that I'm going to provide in the PowerPoint. And one of that is that when we did the point in time count, we found that 50% of the people that identified as homeless came from another city. And so that's why the efforts are really important, and I'll get into it. But I wanted to take a moment and provide that context. So today we're going to discuss essentially the Homeless Services Quarterly Report is something that is provided to council. There were 3 major milestones that were conducted in the 3 months that I've been here with the efforts of the collaboration of the entire city staff. 2018 draft homeless plan, Santa Ana 2018 point in time count, and a Civic Center Plaza operation. And then we're going to just get into about addressing homelessness in Santa Ana. The Homeless Services Quarterly Report actually is a report that outlines in detail the efforts. The efforts are outlined with law enforcement, affordable housing and case management, total funds committed to address homelessness, and other services and new initiatives. This is important because when we're looking at affordable housing and case management, I'd like to reiterate that there is a solution to homelessness. There's about 500,000 people that are experiencing homelessness in the entire United States. LA has 57,000. Orange County has about 5,000. The solution to get someone off the street is to get them into a place of living, whether that be shelter, whether that be affordable housing, whether that be a transitional center. It's to take someone off the street and place them into safe and secure housing. Total funds committed to address homelessness is something that the city is very invested in for a very long time. We are an entitlement city. That means that we receive HUD dollars for Emergency Solutions Grant, which means that we're providing services for outreach, prevention, rapid rehousing, and emergency shelter as well. In the Homeless Services Quarterly Report for the past period of February 2018 to April 2018, we provided council the consideration at the May 1st council meeting. The following 3 major projects were completed. As I mentioned, it was the draft homeless plan, the Santa Ana point in time, and the Civic Center Plaza operation. So let's get into the draft plan. So this draft plan is on our website, and our website is, if you go into the city website and search address homelessness, you will find it. We have actually created an email for public members and any stakeholders or constituents to provide their feedback. It outlines 30 clear recommendations for the County of Orange to collectively improve its homeless services through a county-wide regional collaborative approach with cities and other stakeholders. It has a 6-point plan on addressing housing needs. Again, as I mentioned, to get someone out from homeless is to get them housed. Outreach and supportive services, how to be able to effectively engage somebody. Strategic planning and policy development. Active coordination and collaboration with agencies and neighbors and communities and faith-based organizations. Communication and transparency and capacity building. And the last 2 is very specific to other cities and the regional collaboration that we have requested and now are mandating with our lawsuit. One thing I will say in regards to the addressing housing needs, as you may be aware, there are many efforts throughout the county that are spearheaded by many entities, one being United Way and the Association of California Cities, who has also spearheaded an initiative of creating 2,700 units of permanent supportive housing that is spread throughout different cities. And so the city of Santa Ana is working hard to ensure that other cities are taking on that promise as well. What we did was we planned the Homeless in Santa Ana 2018 point in town. And I'm going to actually go back and say this draft plan was actually conducted prior to the point in time and prior to the actual the litigation that's happening. So we have requested and asked for the regional collaboration long time coming. So the reason the point in time count happened, the point in time count is very important. It happens in January every single year. And what it does is it takes on the demographic of who are the homeless. My first week when I came here, I asked our city manager and the director of our department is, when did the county do the last point in time count for the city of Santa Ana? Because I wanted to know, where are the individuals coming from? What are their demographics? What resources can we get them connected? And how can we get them off the street? The county had not done one. So what did Santa Ana do? we utilized our staff from as many departments as possible. We utilized our SAPD, we utilized our city manager's office, we utilized our city attorney's office, we utilized all of our entire staff from Public Works throughout the entire city to be able to come together within a 12-hour period to get 120 employees together to show up at 4 a.m. with 19 volunteers from nonprofit community to show up on the weekend of Easter, because that's how dedicated everyone is to count the homeless. This was a strategy that was done prior to the court date that was set by Judge Carter, who has the power and authority to begin bringing mandated regional coordination throughout the county. So we wanted to come ready with numbers because the county hadn't prepared it, so we did it. What we found was that in 2017, there was 466 individuals that were unsheltered and 534 individuals that were sheltered. Through the point in time count that we did, that was planned, like I said, in less than 24 hours, we found that 1,030 individuals were actually unsheltered and 587 individuals were sheltered. You can't really see too closely there, but that's about 121% increase. What we also did in this point in time count was look at the demographics. So how many of these individuals were women that experienced domestic violence that were now out on the street? How many of these individuals were veterans that were experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder? How many of these individuals were drug addicts who refused to get services? So we were able to look at this as well. And the reason I narrated all those different scenarios is because just like HUD, the Housing Urban Development, has provided different programs for different continuum of cares to provide, there's different kinds of individuals that experience homelessness. Like I said, there are the kinds who are refusing services. There are the kinds that have extreme mental health. There are the kinds who just lost their job. And I do have to give a shout out to Commander Gaminsky and Corporal Montiel at this moment, because we found that there was a kind out last night that was provided shelter by our SAPD in collaboration with the county healthcare agency that provided them a motel voucher. But it was a mom with a 2-year-old child who was found on the street, who was fleeing from domestic violence, who had 50% of her body burned, who actually came from Iowa, who had a job with the county but could not keep that job because of her trauma and abuse. So there's all different kinds of individuals that are homeless. And then, as I mentioned, there's those who are starting fires. There's those who are resistant to services. And with that, we need more engagement and more best practice to get those people off the streets into residential treatment programs so that they can work out of that addiction. And if they're not able to get out of that addiction and continue to do problems, then obviously we need to get them into institution where they could rehabilitate. The homeless impact on Santa Ana, there's 564 additional homeless individuals that we found through these efforts that we then utilize to be able to present to court and get this bold movement to sue the rest of the other 33 cities in the county. We found that 81.8% were chronically homeless 1 year or more. That means when someone is chronically homeless, that means they have been on the streets for a very, very long time. And the research shows that it's very difficult to get the individuals off the street. It's very, very difficult because of addiction, because of trauma, because of biopsychosocial issues. So to get people off the street, it becomes a battle, a constant engagement. 52% arrived from outside of Santa Ana, which I spoke of, and 7.7 reported as homeless veterans, 28.5 reported as experienced domestic violence, and 32 mental health, 36 disabilities, and 50% substance abuse. Compared to the PIC count, more women were unsheltered. And what Santa Ana has done to help get the women who are off the street is we also have the collaboration with the Wise Place, the additional 60 beds here in conjunction with our nonprofit organization. Of new population since 2017, 23% reported coming from the riverbed. So this is why we have taken these bold actions to talk about regional coordination with the county. I'd like to get into the Civic Center operation. What led after the Santa Ana and the city's push, the Santa Ana Riverbed and the city's push to hold the county accountable was the operation that happened here in the Civic Center Plaza. I think the Civic Center Plaza had individuals that were homeless there for very, very long standing. I think it was almost over 10 years to almost 20 years that people have been residing there in encampments. Because of the city's work with the county and because of the push, we are now able to have, as of April 2nd, the county healthcare agency to provide referrals and shelter options and connections to people so that it could get out of the Civic Center and into whether it's recuperative care, rehabilitation centers, or emergency shelters. The county created that press release in conjunction with us, and out of the 234 people that were actually assessed, 99 accepted referrals. It's hard. The others, we could not force them to accept the referrals or get them into specific housing. So when you're working with the homeless, it's important to get them into working with you. As of April 12th, the Civic Center Plaza, the flags had been completely cleared and fenced. And as I mentioned, we were able to house as many people as possible. The Colt is another effort, was formed in January 2018 to address the numbers of concerns and requests as related. And I believe Commander Kaminski did go ahead and talk a little bit about the Colt. We were, as of today, contacted 718 individuals, responded to 512 locations, and addressed 495 encampments. And that, to that end, I would like to also talk about the MHA. There has been a lot of concerns about the Mental Health Association and that entity that resides in South Main Street. I would like to say that the city and the county did get together with the healthcare agency to continue to work on the issues of the homeless that are surrounding in that area to ensure that there is not negative impact to the residents. And so we are constantly working with the county on that. And that was just a picture of the homeless count that we wanted to share with the rest of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. Any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Keika, for your thorough update. Here, one quick question I do have with regard to the MHA. I've been unclear as to whether that's a county facility or an independent nonprofit or agency who's operating out there. It's been problematic for some time. I've been hearing more and more of it. More and more concerns about it from neighboring residents.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So there is a specific property owner. It is a nonprofit. However, it's funded through the county. There was an RFP process that happened, and the county provided this entity the ability to function with the services there.
Okay.
And Commander Gominski, do you want to add on to that?
So MHA leases the building on South Main Street, and we have examined various different options to try to have the location changed, and after several meetings, the county is unwilling to move it.
Okay. So I think we might need to look at all options here, City Manager, City Attorney's Office, with regard to that. It has been growing as far as the issues concerns, school children, parents sending photos and as dropping off kids, taking kids to school in the morning. And so all I'm going to ask is for us to look at, we've taken some very assertive positions with regard to addressing homelessness and holding the county and other cities accountable. And I think this might be one of those matters that we might need to look at taking some decisive action on as well. A couple of other comments that I'm just going to make. here as well for the record and for staff to consider. We did have several, not one, not two, but the various residents who came and expressed their concerns with regard to the creek and concerns of damage to potentially to property that we've already been seeing and hopefully not threat of life, if you will, if some of these fires and such were to really catch. And so I'm hopeful, and then the staff and acting deputy chief was commended through some of the efforts to comprehensive team to come out. So hopefully we can look at that, and as I think one of my colleagues mentioned, on a more regular basis.
So I just wanted to bring you up to date on what we have done in the creek. So last week, following the clearing of the Civic Center, the Santa Ana Police Department entered into a partnership with the county that those well-renowned blue-shirted individuals that were out here, and they offer services. They're the county's outreach arm. We entered into an agreement with the county that they would provide us ongoing outreach services as long as we requested it. And we have requested it and will continue to request it. We then partner those outreach workers with Santa Ana police officers that work all over the city, in the parks, behind our businesses, in our neighborhoods. Wherever we receive complaints reference homeless encampments, we're sending out police officers partnered with the blue shirts from the county to offer services. Following that initial visit by our blue-shirted friends, we generally send the COLT team, which is the Quality of Life team, to go out there and address any and all of these encampments. Now, over the course of the last 2 weeks, I can tell you that I've personally been on the Santiago Creek on 2 separate days. I have had officers there, including the horseback patrol, 5 days out of the past 2 weeks. We took, just on last Friday, we took 5 truckloads of debris out from underneath the Broadway Bridge overpass. I walked the creek bed from Broadway all the way down to Fisher Park, and once I left, there was not an encampment left there. The horses have continued to work, specifically in and around Santiago Park, with a primary mission of addressing any and all encampments from Hart Park all the way down to the Broadway overpass. They have worked very closely and cooperatively with the community up there, up to and including actual cleanups on the weekends, which the community has embraced and actually done a tremendous amount of work. I have had an opportunity to speak to many of the individuals that spoke tonight. I do understand the ongoing issue up there. When they ask for more and increased sweeps, I can tell you that that specific location is getting more police responses than any place else in the city at this point. So we will continue to address this issue as best we can. We will continue to bring all of the resources that I have at my disposal up there, because I do have ongoing fire concerns. I do have concerns for the residents that live up there. I have heard their complaints. The chief of police has heard their complaints and has authorized me to develop some additional concepts and also utilize more resources. So we have heard those complaints and we are trying to be responsive, sir.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Just a couple last comments. One, there was that also the reference of the one property, the abandoned home on I think it was Riverside, and I imagine we have code enforcement on it. If not, if we can, Mr. City Manager, if we can make sure to hold that property owner accountable and ensure that code enforcement is getting out there to the boarded property that was referenced earlier. My last comment is just to the neighbors who have come out and have endured. Just appreciate your patience and your efforts out there, and congratulations to on your wedding celebration. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Villegas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Ms. Keika, for your update on this, and Deputy Chief Kaminsky for all your hard work. And I know you dedicate a lot of time to this and to making sure our residents are being safe and everyone has quality of life in our city. Quick question, is there an update on the number of encampments in the city? Last I heard, it was like 45 or 46 homeless encampments.
I could get that.
Great. Okay, well, for the next time.
You know, it's interesting, that number, Councilmember Villegas, is, I think, a number that I heard of our cult team addressing on a weekly basis or something like that. It's not the number of the total encampments we have in the city, it's the number that we actually get to.
So that number's higher.
So as of,
so.
so as I mentioned, as of from January 2018 to now, it was 495 addressed encampments. But if you wanted to know for this particular month, I could provide that later.
And it's not how many we addressed in the month, but it's how many we actually know about.
From January 2018 as of May 4th. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. And for the, you want to, go ahead.
I was just going to tell you, Councilmember.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Councilmember, that's a really hard question to answer, right? Because as soon as the cult team slides in there and takes the encampment away, we'll count that as a win until tomorrow, if and when it comes back. So the numbers of how many encampments, very, very hard to ascertain, sir.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your hard work.
And for our community,
Thank you,
there's
Mr.
some
Chair.
new faces that I haven't seen. This is a serious issue. It's a very complex issue. And so what I want you to know is Ms. Kakal, who is now working with our city, she is our point person when it comes to homelessness in Santa Ana. Her position didn't exist until just recently when we voted to create that position and we brought her in. And she's just come in and jumped in with 2 feet. I mean, and has really done an exceptional job in a very short amount of time. So we are moving, we are addressing, and we are critically analyzing how we can best serve the community, increase our quality of life. Your comments today help us also continue to be aware and put something in our radar that maybe wasn't in all of our radars. So we'll make sure that we also get that to the people that we need to get to. So thank you very much, Ms. Kakal.
Thank you.
That moves us into committee member comments. Start with Councilmember Benavides.
Just a brief comments. Wanted to welcome our CDA director once again. I think his team staff's doing a great job here. Great to have you on board to support your team. I know we extended the welcome at the council meeting, but I think this is your first, at least here in this committee, your first official committee that you're on. You spoke too much, however, so if you can kind of keep the words to a minimum for next meeting. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Villegas.
Just want to thank members of the public that came out today to speak, and we are here for you. And I want to thank the rest of the staff for all the great work that you do to make this meeting a success. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And the only comment I have to say is I do believe we have a great staff. And I'm very proud of this staff right in this room. But I'm very proud of the council members that I serve with, because I think, I'm going to speak for myself too here, but I do believe the 3 members that are here are strictly on this position to try to do what's best for our community. And that's really what drives us. And so it's an honor serving with them, but it's also great to have a great team, and I think we are starting to make inroads, so I appreciate that. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.